Hi, everyone. Welcome to Figuring Out Fabric, where I ask dumb questions and you get smart answers. And I'm happy to have, I think, the first product person on here. I've got Sukhwant Kaur, who is the PM for, let me see if I get this right, SQL DB in Fabric. So,
Roughly.
yeah, all right. And I think this will be interesting because SQL DBs, and we probably differ on this. To me, it felt like a particular, like very small niche that was desperately needed inside of Fabric. But I know there's been a lot of talk about kind of application focus and AI support and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it'll be interesting to get a better sense of, okay, what is this trying to do here in this very, very broad kind of data tool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I guess the first kind of question is who is this who's this for? Is there a particular in your mind like persona? Because a lot of times I hear it talking about like application developers, which is not something I would have thought of for Fabric. So is there kind of a target audience for this feature?
Um, Great question, Eugene. So let me do a little bit of a rollback, little introduction. So, hi everybody. My name is Sukhwant Kaur. I'm a product manager with SQL database in Fabric. This is one of the new workloads, which is in public preview right now, and the team is working hard to get it to GA so that more organizations can use it. We do have a lot of interest in this product from all our customers that I've seen in this last 1 year. Uh, Fabric, when it started, it was a data analytics platform, like you
Exactly.
unify it. And when I look at this product Fabric platform, I feel it's more like a specified version, more target toward that. You know what? You should not need 2 or 3 months to learn something to solve your problem. You come here, you decide the problem that you're trying to solve, and you pick a workload, and you just put a name, and it gets ready. So with SQL database, we are trying to make this platform all things data, not just analytics.
Right.
And what we have done is it's your same trusted SQL engine that you're used to on-prem, in PaaS, IaaS, and in your Azure SQL. It's the same engine, but we have wrapped it around in such a way that um, you don't have to do a whole lot to actually get started with this particular workload. So this is a software as a service workload that we are giving to you. So as a user, you just come in, you decide on the name, your database gets created, and then you are given some tiles that, hey, if you are completely new, click on the sample data. It automatically creates all the tables for you. And if you don't know how to query the data, you can just ask Copilot as a co-pilot, I want to find out how many people are in this table or how many rows are in there, and it's going to give you the syntax. So basically, this reduces the learning curve for new people. The goal with Fabric is to democratize the whole database, space, and we are saying that if you have some applications in mind that you want to build, you don't have to think and pick and choose different pieces together, think about how much it's going to cost you what. Over here, you just buy one capacity in Fabric, and you can use any workload. You just play around with multiple workloads and see how it fits in your big scheme of things. And we will do a lot of stuff behind the scene. Like this, in case of SQL, based on your workload, it's going to go up and down. If you're not using it for 15 minutes, it is going to get paused so that you're not getting billed for it. If, let's say, you are new and you've written a query which is putting a lot of pressure on your system, indexing will get done for you. And then it can also kind of tell you how you can optimize stuff. So there are a lot of pieces built in from developers' perspective. We know DBAs already know how to,
Right, right.
tune the system, right? They are already pro in it. But because of the volume of databases, sometimes it can get really hard for companies. You have 1,000 databases, so you would need that many DBAs, right? And over here, we are kind of reducing the gap between a programmer, who's creating applications and the DBAs. So that, and there's so much built into, like, the SQL database workload inside Fabric is giving you the biggest advantage that I feel is all the integration that comes with it. You want to figure a pipeline, you want to take data from a data lake and push it in here, and your data is getting replicated from SQL directly into one lake. So there are a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I mean, we talked about this some I think at SQL Saturday Atlanta a while back, but my background's kind of weird because I used to be a DBA and then I started focusing on Power BI. And so I think that influences a lot of my view on this because for me, um with Power BI for the longest time, and now that's changing, but it would have been nice to have a way to write back. Like there were some like third party visuals and that kind of stuff. But I do a lot of work for small and medium businesses, and there were a lot of times where, okay, most of the stuff exists in some ERP system, and we can just pull in that accounting information. But we have budgets, and that's being stored in Excel or something like that, and some way to have that in a SQL database where people can't fat finger it as easily would have been really nice. And I know we're getting the whole translytical data flow or translytic, I don't even remember the term, but the ability to write back within Power BI. And my recollection is these SQL DBs is a target for that. I see that as being very helpful. I think when I kind of said about the niche bit, I feel like there's pieces with like Power BI or with the whole lakehouse kind of thing where you really don't, for an analytical platform, you don't necessarily want to be writing back a lot of times,
Absolutely.
right? Especially with something like column compressed like Parquet, you get the small file problem where it's like, okay, I'm just saving a couple rows. Well, we have to make a file for every one of those, or we do optimized writes. And so we either slow down everything or we have this bloat and we have to clean it up later. Um,
Correct.
yeah. And so like I see a lot of value there. I think the part of the reason that like still getting a feel for where this fits is you do have to have fabric capacity, and I would think you would have to the devs would have to be kind of familiar with fabric a bit. Now I agree, like I can do
Yeah.
5 clicks and get it created, but it's almost like it's for these data intensive or data flavored kind of app developers. Do you know what I mean? Where they're already doing some work. That's what I would think anyway. I don't know. Do you get a lot of examples of what people are looking to use it for? Good.
The biggest use case that I've seen so far, there are a lot of customers who have already started using this product. Metadata is coming out as number one.
I
But
hear that a couple
I
times. Yeah, yeah.
I know one consulting for I mean some of the consulting firm. I don't think I can tip a name. A couple of them, what they have done is they have created a product that they are selling it to other people, but this product does metadata driven stuff for them.
Okay. Yes.
So they create a product on top of it. Yeah. And one person I know, he was with us since we started our private preview. He has built up an application with C# web application where the backend was Azure SQL, and the moment we had SQL database in Fabric, he moved his database there and he said, my stuff works perfect. I can
Right.
sell it more now because you know what? When I was selling it to my customer, they had to go buy Azure SQL, right? That's an extra step. Now, most of the companies that he works with, they all use Fabric. So they don't have to go buy do anything extra. So he can sell his product. It was related to profit and loss sheet that he creates. The data comes from multiple places, and a little bit of a write back and stuff. Um, in Fabric, so this is our future goal, and there's a lot of work getting on toward is like you heard about it, application development. So we have to work it from the platform layer. Right now, if you look at SQL database, I mean, it's the same engine that Azure SQL. So anybody, if let's say you have there was another customer bank customer, who was creating surveys. So they said for our survey, instead of using SharePoint or something like that, we want to use SQL. So the benefit of that is, they were sending it to like 1,000 people in one bank's branch or something like that. So the surveys get collected, the data comes in SQL DB, and it automatically gets mirrored to one lake, right? You don't have to do any ETL setup, which saves a lot of time for the customer. Now, once the data goes into the SQL Analytics endpoint, that's your read-only point, where you can do any kinds of data analytics stuff that you want to do it, right? On that part, whatever decisions that you want to come out of it. And then you can come back and massage this data if you need to. So that's another use case that I've heard on this one. And do you know about GraphQL? Have you heard about GraphQL?
A little bit, yeah. I know
Yeah. So that's another workload.
good.
Yeah. So that's another workload inside Fabric, which means if you have a data warehouse or a database and you want to create your GraphQL layer, it's as easy as right click, get the name, point it to the database, tick the tables that you want to do, and voila, it's ready, right? And then you take those endpoints and give it to your front end developer, and he can do it. And you know, uh, Power Apps, super easy to connect to SQL database, and I see a lot of folks are going to go onto that one, right? And then I'm sure you heard about functions as well, right?
Yeah.
Functions is another which is making a lot of things possible for customers.
Yeah, I think that helps clarify things a bit because for me, part of the challenge is the first time I hear someone talk about application developers, I'm imagining some Silicon Valley startup or something like that. And in my mind, like they're not going to buy a Fabric license just to be able to, have a database. But one of the things you mentioned that I didn't even think about is the fact that there's these vendors that are making stuff that goes into the customer's environment. Like I did some consulting for a company that they tracked and stored it in SQL information about Azure costs and all this kind of stuff. And so I could easily see something like that or something where with Fabric, where right now I know they're continually making improvements on the monitoring kind of stuff, but there's definitely a room for third party kind of support there. Like especially around cost management and all that kind of stuff. So like to me that makes sense. I think the other challenge or kind of the mental roadblock I had is when I think about internal applications, I'm usually thinking about either like these ERP systems or accounting systems, or if you're making something like if you're making some timesheet application, well, how extensive is the development? But something that you hit on is I I know people think about access in like a derogatory sort of sense, but so many times with Power BI or working with small businesses, having some way of like we just need an easy way to edit just a little bit of data. And I could see something where Power Apps plus SQL DB and Fabric could work really well for that. Again, for stuff where like most of the data we're pulling it in from somewhere, but we need some way for humans to fix it or to be able to manage our budgets or something like that. So that helps
Yes.
clarify a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was just hard for me to imagine like on Hacker News someone talking about like, hey, here's how I set up this thing in Fabric or something like that.
Yes. I think with Fabric, what they do want to make life easier for application developers. That's the goal.
Yeah.
There are a lot of as even as a data engineer, right? There are times when you want to, for instance, your metadata driven. Once you set everything up, somebody has to maintain and make changes, right? So you need a screen, and you need that data to be going somewhere, right? So those kind of things.
Yeah, there's you're probably familiar, but there's the old idea of what they're called CRUD apps, create, read, update, delete, but just,
Yeah,
when screens over data kind of stuff. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Um,
absolutely not.
so I remember in the past we talked about this, um I don't know if this is I guess a SQL Azure SQL DB thing in general too, or but there's been a lot of work for vector support and all that kind of
Yes,
stuff. So
yes,
RAG's kind of what is it? Retrieval augmented generation? I forget, but it's kind of the hello world of generative AI. And so, like, can you talk a little bit about how quickly you can get to that hello world? Because sometimes you may get it working and then realize, oh, maybe this isn't the best use of Gen AI, or oh, this is actually it's really easy to pull in this information.
So, you know, I just read the post on LinkedIn today, I think. They said vector support can't GA in SQL.
Oh, did it? Okay.
So yeah, I think David already posted something right before
We'll
this
we'll put it in the show
episode
notes
is
one way or the
recorded.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So whatever all these developments that are happening in as a SQL, we automatically inherit those here.
Right.
Um, we did a workshop where we showcased, how we can, create the embeddings using OpenAI and store that in your database and create, you know, very powerful searches. So all that capability is there in SQL database in Fabric. And I'm not into the agentic AI pieces, but we do have another workload which makes it really fast and intuitive for you to kind of create your agents
Yeah.
on Fabric. Yeah, so they're heavily spending on that side as well because all the data is here. So what do you want to do? You do want agents. You want or the
Yeah.
customer should be able to get to what they are to get to answers quickly, right? So they are all those pieces there. They're building those blocks on it and giving customers the capability.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be exploring it. And so I think that to me is the selling point where you already talked about how easy it is to set up the database and start playing around with it. The fact that it does hook in with all the like data flows and all those other ways of getting in the data and then being able to kind of just
Beautiful.
quickly do a hello world, quickly do a test. I think that's valuable because I don't think that AI is the right solution for every problem or for everyone, but I think a lot of people want to be able to see how effective it is.
Yeah, and a lot of people have data, right? And everybody want to see, can we get something, can we understand something from here which can give us edge over other companies, right? So the first thing is, you have to bring your data to a clean state. Fabric is giving you all the tools necessary. If you want to grab the data from any source, I mean, they do have, I'm sure you heard about mirroring option that we have. So we have, you can mirror Azure SQL, you can mirror MI,
Oh, mirroring.
Sukhwant DB, Snowflake. There are a lot of third-party tools available as well. And then we have open mirroring, where let's say you have some solution, some data is in a format which we are not giving you a mirroring option. You can write your own code using open mirroring and create your process to bring that data into one lake. And once it's in the one lake, you could clean it before you bring it, or you can clean it using the tools that are given to you and put it in a format which makes more sense, and then use your agents and AI stuff to uh you know create your bots or agents out of that. So we are trying to give this whole ecosystem there, you know.
There was someone who I think more as a joke showed oh yeah, Mark Price Mayer showed a demo for open mirroring for
Yeah,
SharePoint and for Excel, which I thought was very, very interesting. Although unironically, I would I would love, like sincerely, to see an official Microsoft feature where you either have some sort of SharePoint to OneLake sync or SharePoint to SQL DBs and Fabric kind of sync. I know this sounds like silly or small or whatever, but there's just so many times again where people are manually curating some sort of data and it either ends up in Excel files somewhere or SharePoint lists somewhere.
absolutely.
And
Yes.
yeah, and some way to just make it easier to get that into one lake or get it to where we can run a SQL query against it, I think long term is going to be a big deal.
You know, sometimes you don't even want to bring it here. You want to keep the data where it is.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shortcut, right? So shortcuts is one thing that that's already there. But I just yeah, I think there's another tool, a data virtualization, where you could leave the data where it is and you could still connect it to your data source
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
within Fabric. So Fabric is giving you that tool, that shortcut thing where you are creating a shortcut, but the data is not moving in here.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think my big one of my big things I run into a lot is I very much like having data in, say, SQL or something structured, because the number of times somebody put in something that wasn't the right data type and there wasn't that data type validation can, as a Power BI dev, can be kind of frustrating sometimes. Um,
Yes, yes. And have you heard about Cosmos DB? Now we had
Yeah,
Cosmos
yeah, I heard.
DB.
I know.
It's in private preview. So if anybody who's listening, they want to participate in the private preview, they have to fill up a form, and there's an onboarding process. Um,
yeah, I saw this was months ago, but I know Reza was in interviewing Arun, and Arun had mentioned Cosmos and Postgres. I think
yes,
I will say the one downside to these expanded workloads is you get more variability in consumption. And I don't think that's by itself an issue, but I hope that Microsoft continues the work they're doing on surge protection. I hope they make improvements to the CU reporting that's there right now. Because the
yes,
problem is the more different types of workloads you have available, the more availability, the more spikiness, all this kind of stuff. Whereas at least with like when it was all Power BI, and maybe I'm just sentimental, you could kind of predict.
yes,
But now it's easier. It's like you know the auto pause is nice, but you could imagine someone doing a bunch of
absolutely.
testing and affecting stuff. We ran into
Yes,
that with um, a customer environment. I was doing training, and unfortunately, the training stuff, the dev stuff, and the prod stuff was all in the same
mm.
capacity, right?
Oh no.
And
Oh,
oh,
that
it
did.
was rough. It was rough because like the IT folks had a misunderstanding of the problem because my colleague had spoken to Microsoft about the problems we were running into. And so the IT folks thought, well, you just delete stuff out of that workspace. I'm like, well, that's not the source of the
No,
issue.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. No. So, Eugene, I think there's a little bit learning that need to happen at the customer side, and our end too. We are learning every day, listening to the customers.
Oh, sure.
But I feel like if when they're architecting something, they have to, of course, each workload is different, each problem is different. And when you're creating a database, there are different kinds of data. If you are creating something like an enterprise level web application where thousands of people are going to come there, right? And it's going to be heavily used.
Right.
You don't want to share, you might not want to share the capacity with other workloads, right?
Right.
Might, right? And but there are scenarios where, internally you have 5 different applications and 5 different databases, but you know that their usage is not a whole lot. But still, when you decide on the capacity, you need to think through, okay, what kind of workload you're going to put onto it. We do have, I know that that was in preview a while back. I've heard about there's a tool that we are providing where you can tell us some of the stuff about
The
this
SKU
workload, and it's
estimator.
going to
Yeah,
tell,
yeah, the SKU
yeah,
calculator.
queue estimator, yes. And we are also, you talked Dash about CU and billing and stuff like that. You want to find out how is my workload, how much it's doing the consumption, stuff like that. So we have a monitoring, Fabric monitoring tool as well. Um, at our end, at our workload level, we are very in tune with the issues that the customers are having, and we are working on resolving it, improving it, and making sure that we get the right product for the
Yeah,
customer.
and
Yeah.
I know I've talked to folks at Microsoft. I know it's being worked on. I know a good while back they had announced like they were working on the surge protection stuff. I just know. So at the beginning of the year, I had done some benchmarking of ways of getting CSV files into Fabric.
Okay.
And with the reporting that was available, it was kind of frustrating because it wasn't you could access the data model, but it wasn't as detailed as would have been nice. And so in order to get clean numbers for everything, I basically made a different lakehouse for every single kind of data store kind of thing. Um, and that certainly can be challenging. I think the concern about varied workloads, just some of these types of things are very interactive and very spiky, and some are background kind of stuff. But I do agree for the stuff where you don't necessarily know ahead of time how much can be used, the lightweight stuff, it's way, way nice to be able to put it on the Fabric capacity because um, it's really easy with Azure SQL to not know enough about the licensing and overcharge
Yes.
yourself. Because I literally just had a customer where he was paying $300 a month because he had it on the lowest tier for the V core. And he didn't, again, this would have been a perfect example if he was buying Fabric, where it was like 3 tables that was basically Excel data or some other data that pulling a few things like county's information for sales or whatever. Well, he was paying for the lowest level according to the description, but it was V core, so it
Hmm.
was 300, and it could have moved him
Yeah.
down to standard for the DTU level, which is like $75 per month. But because it was such a lightweight kind of thing that was so rarely used for some of this reporting, I'm like, well, let's move you to basic, which normally I would not recommend for prod, but for his use case, it's $5 a month. And
Oh yeah. A huge difference.
yeah, right, like literal orders of magnitude at each
Mm.
step.
Yeah.
And for dev tests, like it's great with what you're providing because I've screwed up before where okay, I'm trying to set up a demo. I had an S1 like $75 in my environment for like months because I forgot about it and I felt like a dummy. And even now I took it down to the B tier and I think I still need to go and get rid of it, right? So
Yeah.
having something where you're not accidentally just billing over and over, I think is
Yes.
very convenient.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like in the world of Fabric, when there's so much power, a lot of responsibility, and I feel as a Fabric admin, you have to kind of architect things in a certain way. Let's take an example of SQL DB in Fabric, right? We want admin to decide who can and cannot create the databases because they want the control. They can control that at the tenant level or at the capacity level. Sometimes for bigger organizations where they have offices all over the world, it makes sense to go down to capacity level, right? Because finance purchase some certain capacity and they're like, we want to work on these 5 applications, which are data and analytics related. Okay, here's our capacity. And the other admin who is going to control who uses what and who does what so that if you have 100 people in your department, you don't want everybody to be creating databases, right? You have out of those 100 people, your 5 of them are your developers. You want them to work on it. So put them in a security group, add them as the people who can create.
Yeah, I know. I've seen like toggles for preview features. I could be wrong. I haven't usually seen a lot of stuff for like really granular control for Fabric items as a whole because I do think that is something that's in demand where some stuff like let's say real-time intelligence tends to be a
Yes,
bit expensive on the CU side. And I think
yes,
people who are coming from Power BI to Fabric would like a way to kind of take a staggered approach with, okay, here's the items you can create. These have been approved and all that kind of stuff.
yes.
So that's definitely an area where I would love to see kind of more control for admins to take a staggered kind of approach because um I think it just makes it a little bit less intimidating about
Absolutely.
someone's gonna like create all this stuff, use up all these CUs and cause
Yeah.
problems in the environment.
Yeah, it's a very, very valid concern, June. So, from my knowledge, I think we do have one checkbox where you allow that users can, who are the users who can create Fabric item for their
That's true.
databases.
Yes, you can
And you
do
can
that.
put that. And then for if you let's say decide that you want this set of group to be able to create Fabric items, you can keep going down further and you can pick another workload and say, I don't want like out of that big subset, I don't want these people to be doing this, right? You can go in both ways.
Yeah.
But there are
All right.
controls over there.
All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah.
Um, it's probably silly to ask you your favorite and least favorite Fabric feature. So I'll just ask you for SQL DBs, what's your favorite feature of the kind of product that you manage, or what's the one you're most excited about?
I'm really excited about Copilot. Copilot pieces inside that, I think that empowers all kinds of users. Not everybody can remember all the syntax. And even, I'm sure you have already seen it, that if you're trying to create a report, you point your report to the data and pull up your Copilot. Copilot can do the thinking for you. It can give you ideas on what report you should create, basically. And then you just keep going, looking at the reports and keep tweaking. Keep telling Copilot, do this for me or do that. And it does that for you. Um, but in you coming back to SQL database, I think uh, the feature where it replicates the data automatically, I feel like very precious because in the olden time I was a developer for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So when in initial phases, when you think about building something, what do? You just create your database and you start middle layer, and then you start thinking about your print layer, right? These are three things you think about, and then you say, yeah, fine, I'm going to do the reporting, but that just comes after the fact. And then when you start thinking about the reporting, you think, oh, I don't want any load on my operational database. Let me copy it somewhere, right?
Yep.
So all those that comes in steps and later on. But over here, and when you are taking data from one point to another, you're writing an ETL. Any line of code you write, somebody has to maintain it.
Yep.
So with SQL database and Fabric, the replication happens behind the scene for you, which means you don't have to maintain that code. You don't have to okay, I'm done with these pieces. My data is coming. Oh, let me create a report. Oh, the data is already there in my Delta Parquet format. I can just join it to other pieces and do whatever I want to do. So I really like that feature.
Nice. And then there's way too many social media networks, but where can people find you? Is there anything else you want to promote other than what we just talked about for the last 30 minutes?
I am available on LinkedIn more. That's where I post my blogs and post whatever I write. Yeah. The recent ones that I did was now we had the Terraform available and the Fabric CLI. Like if anybody wants to use Terraform to create their SQL databases and do more scaling quickly, they can try that. So LinkedIn is my main place. Eugene, I haven't gone to any other platform yet.
That might be for the best.
The local person, I would say. I need to work on it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on here. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Eugene. I really appreciate this time, and thank you, everybody. Bye.